Lord Mad Dog, and today we are playing Space Engineers. Or rather, we are talking about Space Engineers because we are continuing my series on how I wish it worked. And today we're specifically covering combat of Space Engineers. Now, as a disclaimer, I'm okay at modeling. I mean, means I can shape and make things in 3D programs using polygons and NURBS and sometimes subdivisions. Okay? I'm also decent at doing texturing. However, my ability to program and write code is subpar at best. So that's my disclaimer. And now let's go ahead and jump into this.
Fuel
All right.
critical.
For combat in Space Engineers, it is a lot like most combat for most building games. Mediocre. That's about all I can say about it. It's not really up there on the thought line for most building games, and Space Engineer is no exception. But I don't believe that's how it should be. I think combat is pretty easy to be integrated into the game, and it should be put up there with priorities and done right. And this is how I would like to see combat done in Space Engineers. But first, let's go ahead and talk about how it currently works. In Space Engineers, combat basically works by this. You have ammunition. You have two different types of weapons. Your Gatling and your missile. You plop them on your ship, and they basically shoot at the enemy target. And that's pretty much the extent of combat. You do have different armor thickness, like you have light armor, heavy armor. You know, we kind of covered that in the building section of the thing. However, there's not really much more than that to combat. Sadly. Now, whoops, let me remove that. Oh well. How I would like to see it changed, it would be far more in depth. And how would I would do that is by having it revolve around 3 different things. That would be DPS, energy, and mobility, or also defense. Mobility and defense would probably be pretty much in the exact same lineup. Okay, so that said, let's go ahead and talk about weapons first. All right, right now, weapons are your standard ammunition, and they shoot. So we'll go ahead and check this thing out. It has a 600-meter range, which I also think is a bit too far range, because 800-meter range, which is actually a bit too far range for most things. It kind of makes it so you can't really see the enemy or target them, which means that you're only limited to AI aiming, and that AI aiming really destroys the game, at least for me. And so let's go ahead and talk how I wish these things worked. So on all this, you've got all these little options, and you got one slider bar. What would I actually like to be seeing here instead is, you would still keep all this, but you would actually add 3 extra slider bars to here and 2 extra options. Well, total of 3, but only 2 to begin with. Now, when you first start the game and you start progression and whatnot, the only options you would have would be rail or gauze, basically electric magnified chunks of metal that you would shoot out of your ship. Instead of having magnesium bullets, you would just have giant clumps of iron that would shoot out and smack into your target. And I think that would be much better. Okay, so and how that would happen is right here in this section, you would have 2 slider bars. That DPS, and as you slide the DPS up, your range goes up, and your energy cost goes up. All right. So as this line goes up, let's say I slide it all the way up to its max. That means that the damage per shot, okay, would go up. It would also mean that the cost per energy shot would go way up too, exponentially. Then we have the second one, which would be your fire rate. Now, how fast that's going to shoot. The faster you shoot, the more energy is going to cost according to how much the the damage per shot you have on up this. So that's set. So the more, if you have it set all the way damage up and all your fire rate set up, you're going to need an insane amount of energy. But not only that, the energy should come from weapon batteries. Now each one of these things, according to their size, now you would have multiple different styles of weapons. Like this is just a basic weapon. It is got no aestheticsness to it at all. It's just a weapon, and that's basically how the devs did it, because it was just, it's a Gatling gun. It's just kind of thrown on there. And you would have multiple different ones, probably a lot of player-created stuff, player-created ones that you could use as your, because if they changed it, do be different mods, people would add tons of different models. So you can actually have, integrated into the style of ship you want. And as I was saying, you have a new block called energy, weapon battery energy. And that would be like a battery block, but it has to be charged from your energy sources into your batteries. Now, to keep this from being way overpowered, because like I just said, you could slide it all the way up to have your highest DPS and your highest range, highest damage per shot, and highest fire rate. It would make it really easy for you to become quite one-shot ships. But to change that is to be according to the size of the current block. So you'd have different sizes. Like this one here is actually a pretty decent size block, but I don't think it actually should be that size. I think this is actually only a 2-size block, which means that I'm not going to give the exact numbers here because you would have to go a lot of balancing, and I know there's a lot of talk of Fantasy Realm because it's just too much for the devs to actually do, but I really wish they would. So this would actually only a 2-block cost, and which means that each block would probably only be able to have stored in it 10 megawatts of probably a megawatt of energy, and for each block store is probably only total of 10 DPS or something. Now, the numbers would be whatnot, but basically that the energy would have to then flow back into each gun, so you can't actually make a one-shot weapon unless your weapon's really big. And then the more the damage you have on it, the slower the weapon turns, just for more of a balance thing. So right now you can see it can freely turn really fast, really freely, but if you had all the damage all the way piped up, your turning radius would be much slower. So if you're trying to kill big ships, you might want to have higher DPS with a slower fire rate, so you can have more of a big kill shot. But if you're trying to shoot down like missiles, you're going to want to have low DPS, probably high fire rate, so you can track very easy, and that way give different varieties for each gun. And each weapon would draw a certain amount of energy, and then you would have your weapon batteries. These weapon batteries you won't even need necessary to have weapon batteries. I just think it'd be really neat because I'm a big fan of TIE Fighter game, where they had the whole energy on the side, the engines, and if you've ever played TIE Fighters, you know what I'm talking about. And different games, you go through your weapon batteries, and then the energy from your ship recharges it. So that's how I wish the first option would work, and that would just be shooting giant chunks of lead. No, iron. Giant chunks of iron basically cost nothing to shoot except for energy. And energy would be important because, you get it. You understand why. You know why energy would be important. Second option, okay, right here, there'd be a new option here. Instead of idle movement, well, you still have idle movement, you would click artillery. Now, what would this do would add a third bar to this list right here. And that third bar would be area of effect. And you can slide that area of effect all the way, according to how much area you slide that one up to however big your weapon is, maybe 10 meters or even maybe to 20 meters, depending on the size of your weapon. And that would mean that every shot for every area of effect would take magnesium powder. That would need, so you would these would actually require you to have artillery weapons would actually require you to be connected to the grid, be connected to your movement grid, because it needs magnesium powder to shoot and have an area effect. However, with artillery, your weapons would have a shorter range. Well, maybe not a shorter range, but a much slower projectile. Your projectile would be much slower, whereas if you're just using railguns or gauze technology, gauze actually shoots faster. That's why I say gauze weapons shoot faster, but rail actually shoot with more. It's not worth going into science about that. Okay, so and actually you can get a gauze rifle that shoot almost as good. It's like I said, I'm not going to go into that. If you want to look it up, you can look up the rail and difference between gauze rifles. Okay, so as I was saying, as you crank up your DPS, the faster your bullet flies, and the farther it flies. But like I said, I think that's a cap out pretty easily, not too far, because otherwise it's only capable for NPC aiming, and that kind of ruins the game. So maybe 400 or 500 meters max, even at that. But then larger space stations, maybe should have a little bit larger range. And I'm going to go into that when we talk about energy and how that would work. Okay, so then you've got the third bar. You can slide your area of effect, so it's now artillery, and slower your you make your projectile slower, but it actually makes it have an area effect and cost magnesium. All right, then there's the third option, and that would be energy weapon. Okay, and that would only have 2 bars as just like the first one. Now, energy weapons would be higher in the progression tree, but they would work a little bit different. As you slide the damage up, it would also gain an area effect. And unlike unlike artillery and railguns, they're a hit scan weapon, which means they're instant hit. It's not a projectile, it's an instant hit weapon. Now, as you scroll your damage up, you get an area effect and you actually get higher DPS. However, the energy cost for doing this is probably cost like maybe 3. You'd have to do the balancing cost on it. Probably be like 3 times more energy costing than maybe railguns, because like I said, it's an instant hit weapon. Now you're asking me, why in the world, Lord Mad Dog, would you have an area effect on lasers? That's not how lasers work. Actually, yeah, it is. If you know anything about heat and you hit something with enough heat, it explodes. Especially if we're talking megawatts worth of power. I mean, gigawatts worth of power. You hit something with something like a 10 gigawatt laser, you generate enough heat, and you're going to be causing the stress level, the material to expand at such an immense speed that the stress would just cause it to fracture and explode. So that would be the first sliding bar, and that would enable your damage there. And then the second one would be pulse. And that'd be how long your weapon pulses for. The higher your pulse damage is how long the laser stays on. There would always be like maybe a 1 to 3 second cooldown time, period. But pulse on each weapon. But pulse would enable you to have that pulse last longer. So if you want to guarantee, instead of just like a 1 millisecond pulse, and you want to have a lot of damage, so you would shoot and it just be a 1 millisecond pulse. Okay? Or you could have it actually act as a real long-lasting laser. You slide that bar all the way up, and you bring the damage down, so you have that ratio, and you just go bzzz, and that would basically be your 3 weapon types. I think you would have different models, like I said. Players would probably make a whole bunch of different models, so you can have different types of ships, different types of combat styles, but basically that would be your 3 different types of weapons: artillery, lasers, and rail. Okay? Now we also need to talk about reactors, or energy. Now, there's not really much I would change to reactors. They work pretty much perfect the way they do right now. I like them. Of course, on planets, you would have the other options of using wind, which actually provides a decent amount, and hydrogen and whatnot. But basically, your main way for power, especially for weapons, would be your reactor. And there is only one thing I would change for reactors, and that would be stable and unstable. When you first put down your reactor, it is naturally in unstable mode, and this means that it will be for non-static grids. It will provide exact the same amount of energy it does now. However, as you see here, I have a static grid. All right, I plop this thing down on a static grid, and it goes into stable mode. It takes 2 minutes for it to, or a balanced time, maybe 2 to 3 minutes for it to become stable. Okay, because not moving around, it becomes a state. You have a more stable nuclear reaction, and you can have a much higher energy output. All right, and this higher energy output would be like 10 times as much energy. Now, what that does is it makes bases and whatnot really hard to assault. And I think that's one of the major problems in this game, is that fixed structures are just not viable. And if you ever played any PvP, you know fixed structures are just not viable. They're super easy to raid and whatnot. But if a fixed structure has a reactor in stable mode, has 10 times as much energy, which means it would have 10 times as much energy to shoot its weapons. It would have 10 times more powerful weapons than a non-stable ship. You're not going to take that base that easily. You're going to want to try to stay away until you have the proper equipment. Okay, Also, another thing I would really like to see done for reactors is explosive reactors. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but if a nuclear explosion all of a sudden stops in the middle of its reactions because the block loses too much function, I believe it would explode. I really would. I know there's a mod online for that, and I totally agree with it, even though I have never used it before. I totally agree with that. If it gets grinded down below functional ability, it's a go, and it has an active reaction going on at the time, it's a go club-boom. That's just my opinion, and I think that would also make it much more balanced. Okay, now, see, that's energy. We have covered energy and weapons so far. Let's talk about mobility. In this game, thrusters are quite weak. Actually, that's because a couple of blocks, in my opinion, are just way too heavy for what they should be. Okay, but I think thrusters should work different than what they are now. I think that they should have the current amount of energy they have, but they should be able to channel more energy in them to get a higher output of thrust. And the more energy you channel into them, the more exponential cost for thrust to ratio. Okay? Now, that should even work with hydrogen, and you're going to say, well, how does that work with hydrogen? Well, ion engines in this game aren't actually realistic. But basically, ion engines, how they work in real life, is that you use a lot of energy to cause a stable reaction with the hydrogen, ion, forget this. I'm not going to try to explain it. I can't remember all the details, and I'll sound like an idiot. But basically, use energy to get a much higher efficiency and more thrust. Well, actually, ion engines don't have very good thrust, but basically, that's the truth of it. So you should be able to do it with hydrogen engines and obviously ion engines and atmospheric engines. The more energy you pour into them, the higher the amount of thrust that comes out of them. And the more energy it costs exponentially according to the thrust to weight ratio. And what that would enable you to do is have that nice little key binding thing so you can shuttle more energy into your weapon systems or your movement systems or your shield systems. Now, there we are. Shield systems. I said it. Yes, I know there's a big argument against shield systems in Space Engineers, but there's a lot of mods, and I have a couple of them. Now, I believe that shield systems should definitely be added into game. That's just because I like the whole idea of the shield systems. So, I already have a couple mods for shields. All right, there's energy and whatnot, but I really wish these things would be kind of added into game. Now, how I wish these would work would be a bit different than how they work right now. Right now, they have, for this one, and I think the other one as well, I haven't used much of the defensive energy ships, is you put added extra blocks and whatnot for it. No, I think it should just be, you put it in, you get into the UI of it, and you got sliders. And yes, I like sliders. If you have a problem with it, well, deal with it. I played games where they don't have sliders, and like from the depths, and it's all about the actual creation of the weapon. And I've spent hundreds of hours trying to create beautiful weapons and working weapons, and it's just not. For some people, it can be fun, but for me, what it does is it destroys your creativity and ramrods you into certain ways and shapes. And I think that, especially for Space Engineers, sliders is so much better than trying to have, well, like this. I mean, I can work around with this, but it really can dampen my creativity and style. And I think that combat should be, while added, shouldn't actually hamper your creation style, other than, you know, maybe armoring up your reactor a little. That's just kind of like a no-brainer to me. Yes, you armor up your reactor. So yes, I don't think they should have this. It should just be a slider, and the slider should be pretty simple. You know, for I also think it, just two sliders. One for max energy, max, give me a sec, max amount of shield HP, and the second slider for how fast your shield recharges. Now, I think this, for balance reasons, should cost 2 times as much energy per damage to keep it up. You know, it may take 1 megawatt power to do 10 DPS per shot. Well, this would take 2 megawatts of power to have 10 DPS defense, 10 HP defense, to have it up. Okay, and then for recharge value, it just costs exponentially more for every bit of energy you have it cost. Now, what this is mainly for you would have maybe a very, very small shield on your moving ships, but this was mainly for your fixed stations because you have 10 times the energy output of for a fixed station. With a reactor, might change this to a reactor. And that really makes combat have this give and take between all sides. You know, you can either armor your ship really up and basically rely on energy, your mobility with your putting more energy into your thrusters, or you can go ahead and try to go with the shield way, where you put more energy into your shield and worry about less about mobility with less about armor. Or you could just be a glass cannon and go all weapons and get yourselves obliterated the instant someone shoots you. And it provides that nice give take, that full, easily balanced, easily rectified combat. Now, let's talk about actual aiming of this. Now, as I said before, that I do not like AI aiming. I do not. I think it removes a lot of the fun from the game, and it limits it basically, because AI is always going to be better than player. Okay, I think that it should work. How aiming should work is pretty much like it works in most space combat games. You have this dead zone circle on your screen, and you then move your mouse. The weapons follow your mouse, and where your targeting section, and then it shoots. Boom, 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 boom. Now, that's not to say that it's not possible to have AI aim for you. Okay, we have a program block, but I would like to see an AI core added. Now, if you've ever played Empyrean, you know what an AI core does. Okay, now, but this one's a little bit different. Okay, an AI core, it basically would be a program block. Where I don't have a program block on my thing. That's okay. Program block that you pop down, and then you would be able to give it a set of instructions really easy with an if, and, or a but system. Basically a gambit system which allows you to have it target in specific things, but for each command you would have to put an AI chip in it, which would cost. An AI chip are very small things, but they cost 1 gold and 1 platinum each. And for every command that you have to put an AI chip in it. So it'd be expensive, but it would enable you to create actual easy to control ships. But they would also, for each one, and for each AI chip, it cost more 1 megawatt of energy. Well, probably have to balance to get the numbers right, but basically, actually, let me get an actual G here, program block, just because I want to. Here, program block. All right, and you would hit this. It'd have a whole lineup here. It'd take a lot to explain my ideal for that, but basically, for each weapon that you want automated, that you want to be shoot on itself, it costs 1 megawatt of energy to have that aim, and then a percentage of its accuracy. With one AI chip, your accuracy would only be 50%. I mean, not even 50%, but well, yeah, probably about 50%. You'd probably have to have 2 AI chips for each weapon, and you have the percentage chance for it to all the way up to probably about 85% accuracy. But that would cost you a decent amount of energy and AI chips and resources, so you can have AI aiming, but these would basically be used, I know people would use them on their ships, but basically used for base defense while you are not online. But mostly everything else would be controlled from your control seat, or a control seat that is selected to be your aiming. Because that's one thing you can't quite do in this game yet. Is, specifically, well, kind of. You can get each weapon, but I think it would be much better if you could aim them like this. This is a mod I'm using right now to do this, but as you can tell, I can barely see where I'm shooting, and they don't actually shoot where I'm trying to go, because they don't have any convergence they would be very easy to, well, not very easy to add. I know how convergence can be a big pain to add in games. A lot of games actually struggle with doing it, but for a big company like Keen, they should be able to figure out how to do the coding to do that. And you can have multiple ships, multiple control panels, one for the side, one for the right. Also, fixed weapons. Fixed weapons should be added be more of a thing in the game. I know there's a couple fixed weapons, like we got block weapons. Now, obviously, I have mods in this game, but we got the Gatling gun, and we've got the rocket launchers, and this other reloadable rocket launcher. Now, I think that fixed weapons should should work pretty much like they do now, except for obviously the changes I suggested. However, they should also have a 90-degree firing arc in front of them instead of just a straight-on firing arc, and they should also cost about 20% less energy for each time they shoot. So if you're using my suggested method of shooting, they should cost 25% less energy. So you're going to want to go where for your bigger weapons, and like I said, you can have much bigger weapons. Player-made weapons. Well, first off, you'd have keying, probably like maybe 3 or 4 times this size, maybe longer, so you can have much bigger weapons output. So you can have giant spinal weapons. I love spinal weapons. I mean, I don't know about you, but I like spinal weapons. Spinal mountain weapons, and they'd be a certain percentage more efficient in energy cost than the other ones. So you could definitely have broadside ships or head-on ships, for that matter. You know what I'm talking about. If you've ever played any space games, you know, like this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So that is pretty much what I think how combat should be fixed and added to the game. I think it would make the game a million times better just in this little bit of work here. I think it wouldn't take Keen more than a month to do it, and I think it would it'd be very easy to balance because it's a very simple system. It would have a lot of forethought to it, and if you add it with my other system of I talked about in building, having multiple tiers of defense and HP things, it really add a nice, really in-depth system to the game that would give players hundreds and hundreds of hours more worth of content, and it wouldn't take them all that much to do this. I think it just, you know, I know I come up with the idea, but I think it'd just be absolutely amazing if they did it. And that's my opinion on combat in Space Engineers. If you have any comments, or you don't like my ideals, or you really like my ideals, I'd love to hear about it in the comment section. And that's pretty much about it. Lord Mad Dog, signing off.